In the heart of Detroit, where the streets echoed with the sounds of struggle and resilience, a young boy named Marcus Johnson grew up in a small, weathered house with his mother, Evelyn. The house, with its creaky floors and peeling paint, was a testament to the hardships they faced, but it was also a sanctuary, a place where Evelyn worked tirelessly to shield Marcus from the harsh realities of their world. Evelyn had raised Marcus alone ever since his father, David, walked out on them when Marcus was just 3 years old. David had left without a word, leaving Evelyn to juggle multiple jobs to make ends meet. She worked as a janitor during the day and a waitress at night, her hands calloused and her spirit unyielding. Despite the exhaustion, she always made time for Marcus, instilling in him the values of hard work, kindness, and perseverance. "Marcus," she would say, her voice steady but filled with warmth, "life isn't about what you have, it's about who you are, and you, my son, are destined for greatness." Marcus listened intently, his young mind absorbing every word. He admired his mother's strength, even as he noticed the weariness in her eyes. He often wondered why his father had left, but Evelyn never spoke ill of David. Instead, she focused on teaching Marcus to rise above their circumstances. As Marcus grew older, he became acutely aware of their financial struggles. While his classmates flaunted new sneakers and the latest gadgets, Marcus wore hand-me-downs and carried a tattered backpack. But he never complained. Instead, he wore his circumstances like a badge of honor, determined to make his mother proud. One day, when Marcus was 9, he came home from school with tears streaming down his face. Evelyn was in the kitchen, scrubbing the counters, when she heard the door slam. She rushed to him, her heart sinking at the sight of his tear-streaked cheeks. "What happened, baby?" she asked, kneeling to his level. "They called me poor," Marcus sobbed, clutching his worn-out backpack. "They said I'll never be anything because I don't have what they have." Evelyn's heart ached, but she didn't let it show. She cupped Marcus's face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "Listen to me, Marcus," she said firmly. "You are not defined by what you have. You're defined by who you are. And you, my son, are smart, strong, and capable of achieving anything you set your mind to. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Marcus nodded, wiping his tears. From that day on, he carried his mother's words with him, using them as a shield against the cruelty of the world. As Marcus progressed through school, his determination only grew stronger. He excelled academically, his teachers often remarking on his sharp mind and relentless work ethic. One teacher, Mr. Thompson, took a particular interest in Marcus, recognizing the potential that lay beneath his quiet demeanor. "Marcus," Mr. Thompson said one afternoon after class, "you have a gift. Don't let your circumstances define you. With your mind and determination, you can achieve things most people only dream of." Those words ignited a fire in Marcus. He began to dream of a life beyond the confines of his neighborhood, a life where he could provide his mother with everything she had ever sacrificed for him. He spent hours at the local library, devouring books on science, technology, and business, his mind racing with ideas for the future. But life wasn't without its challenges. Evelyn's health began to decline as the years of working multiple jobs took their toll. She developed chronic pain in her knees and often came home barely able to stand. Marcus, now a teenager, took on part-time jobs to help ease the burden, balancing school, work, and his studies with remarkable discipline. By the time Marcus reached high school, he had become a standout student and athlete. He joined the debate team, where his eloquence and quick thinking earned him accolades, and he ran track, his speed and determination making him a force to be reckoned with. His grades placed him at the top of his class, and his teachers often spoke of him as a role model for his peers. Evelyn's teachings kept him grounded. "You're doing great, Marcus," she said one evening as they sat together at their small kitchen table. "But never forget where you come from. Always remember to be kind and humble." "I will, Mom," Marcus replied, smiling. "I promise." Their bond was unbreakable, forged through years of shared struggles and unwavering love. Marcus often found himself marveling at his mother's strength. She was his hero, his guide, and his light in a world that often felt dark and unforgiving. As high school graduation approached, Marcus received a letter that would change his life forever. He had been awarded a full scholarship to the University of Michigan, a dream he had dared to believe in but never thought possible. When he shared the news with Evelyn, she burst into tears, pulling him into a tight embrace. "You did it, Marcus," she whispered. Her voice choked with emotion. "You're going to do amazing things." Marcus's departure for college was bittersweet. Evelyn was proud beyond measure, but the thought of being apart from her son filled her with a sense of emptiness. On the day he left, she stood in the doorway, waving as he drove off to begin the next chapter of his life. As the car disappeared from view, Evelyn whispered a silent prayer for his success and safety. Little did they know, the journey ahead would test their bond in ways they could never have imagined. The University of Michigan was a world unlike anything Marcus had ever known. The sprawling campus buzzed with energy, its diverse student body representing countless backgrounds and ambitions. For Marcus, stepping onto the campus for the first time felt like entering an entirely different universe. He carried the weight of his mother's sacrifices on his shoulders, determined not to let her down. Marcus quickly immersed himself in his studies, focusing on computer engineering, a field he had always been passionate about. His natural aptitude for problem-solving and coding didn't go unnoticed. Professors commended his dedication, while classmates often turned to him for help with assignments. Yet Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. Growing up in poverty had left its mark, and he often compared himself to peers who seemed to have everything handed to them. Despite these feelings, Marcus remained steadfast. He knew he wasn't just pursuing his dreams, he was fighting for his mother's sacrifices to mean something. Every late night spent coding, every weekend in the library, every group project was a step toward building the future they had both envisioned. Outside of class, Marcus kept mostly to himself. He couldn't afford to indulge in the social scene that many of his classmates enjoyed. While they partied on Friday nights, Marcus was often at his dorm desk, poring over lines of code or researching the latest tech trends. His focus paid off when he landed an internship at a prestigious tech company during his sophomore year. It was a turning point that began to shape his career. During his internship, Marcus worked tirelessly, earning the respect of his supervisors. By the end of the summer, he had contributed to a project that would later become one of the company's flagship products. His work ethic and talent were undeniable, and his supervisors made it clear they wanted him back after graduation. The offer filled Marcus with a sense of pride, but it also served as a reminder of the distance growing between him and Evelyn. Phone calls with his mother had become less frequent, not because he didn't care, but because he was consumed by his work and studies. Evelyn never complained, but Marcus could sense her longing in her voice. "How are you doing, Mom?" he'd ask during their conversations. "I'm fine, baby," Evelyn would reply, her tone always warm and reassuring. "Just working and taking it day by day. You don't worry about me. Focus on your goals." Marcus knew his mother well enough to recognize the unspoken words behind her reassurance. She missed him deeply, and the physical distance between them only made it harder. By the time Marcus reached his final year of college, he had already started laying the groundwork for his own tech startup. His professors encouraged him to pursue the idea, noting that his innovative approach to app development had the potential to disrupt the market. With their guidance and the support of a small team of like-minded students, Marcus launched his first app, a platform designed to connect small businesses with local customers. The app gained traction quickly, earning accolades from industry insiders and drawing the attention of investors. Marcus's success was meteoric. By the time he graduated with honors, his startup had secured significant funding, allowing him to move back to Detroit and set up an office in the city's burgeoning tech district. For Marcus, it was a dream come true. A chance to give back to the city that had shaped him, and most importantly, to provide a better life for his mother. "Mom, I'm coming home," Marcus announced during one of their phone calls. "I found an office downtown. It's small, but it's a start." Evelyn's joy was palpable. "That's wonderful, Marcus. I'm so proud of you." When Marcus returned to Detroit, he was greeted with open arms. Evelyn had prepared his favorite meal, fried chicken, collard greens, and cornbread, an expression of her love and pride. Sitting together at the dining table, they talked late into the night, reminiscing about the past and dreaming about the future. "You've come so far, Marcus," Evelyn said, her eyes glistening with tears. "But remember, success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you are and how you treat others." "I know, Mom," Marcus replied, his voice filled with sincerity. "Everything I do is because of you. I'll never forget that." Marcus's return marked the beginning of a new chapter, but it also came with its own set of challenges. Running a startup was no small feat, and Marcus often found himself working long hours, juggling the demands of investors, employees, and clients. Despite the pressure, he remained committed to his vision, pouring his heart and soul into the company. As the startup grew, so did Marcus's reputation. He became a rising star in the tech industry, featured in magazines and invited to speak at conferences. For a young black man from the south side of Detroit, his success was groundbreaking, inspiring others who faced similar struggles. But amidst the accolades and opportunities, Marcus began to feel the weight of isolation. His relentless pursuit of success left little room for personal relationships, and the distance between him and his mother began to grow once more. Evelyn noticed the change, but chose not to voice her concerns. She understood the demands of Marcus's career and didn't want to burden him with her feelings. Instead, she continued to support him from afar, quietly proud of the man he had become. It was during this time that Marcus met Sophia Carter, a marketing consultant at one of the companies he partnered with. Sophia was everything Marcus thought he wanted: intelligent, ambitious, and charming. She shared his drive for success, and their connection was immediate. Marcus, who had spent so much time focused on his work, found himself drawn to Sophia's charisma and energy. Their relationship blossomed quickly, with Sophia showing a keen interest in Marcus's company. She often offered ideas for expansion and strategy, positioning herself as an invaluable partner. Marcus appreciated her insights, viewing her as both a romantic and professional ally. But not everyone was convinced of her intentions. When Marcus introduced Sophia to Evelyn during a family dinner, Evelyn's instincts told her something was off. Sophia was polite but distant, her smile not reaching her eyes when she spoke to Evelyn. Later that evening, Evelyn voiced her concerns to Marcus. "She seems calculated," Evelyn said gently. "I'm not saying she's a bad person, but just be careful, Marcus. Not everyone who smiles at you has your best interests at heart." Marcus dismissed his mother's concerns, chalking them up to overprotectiveness. "Mom, Sophia's not like that. She believes in me, just like you do. You'll see." But Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia's interest in Marcus was more about his success than his character. And as Marcus grew closer to Sophia, the bond between mother and son began to strain. Sophia's influence over Marcus became more apparent as time went on. She encouraged him to take bigger risks, pushing him to expand the company rapidly. "You're playing it too safe, Marcus," she said one evening as they reviewed financial projections. "If you want to be a true leader in this industry, you need to think bigger." Marcus, eager to prove himself, began to take her advice. He invested heavily in new projects, some of which were riskier than he would have considered on his own. Sophia's ideas were bold, but they often required significant financial commitments, and Marcus found himself stretching the company's resources thin. Evelyn, watching from the sidelines, grew increasingly worried. She tried to broach the subject with Marcus, but he was defensive. "Mom, I know what I'm doing," he said during one heated conversation. "Sophia's helping me take this company to the next level. You just don't understand." Evelyn's heart ached as she saw her son slipping further away. She knew Marcus was smart, but she also knew how easy it was to lose sight of what truly mattered when ambition took over. The tension between Marcus and Sophia reached a breaking point when she proposed a joint business venture. She had been researching the market for a new app and pitched the idea to Marcus with enthusiasm. The concept seemed promising, but it required a significant financial investment, most of which would come from Marcus's company. "I believe in this idea," Sophia said, her voice persuasive. "And I believe in us. This could be our chance to build something truly groundbreaking together." Marcus hesitated. He trusted Sophia, but the idea of risking his company's resources made him uneasy. He decided to consult Evelyn, hoping for some clarity. "Mom, Sophia wants to start a business with me," he explained during a phone call. "She has a great idea, but I'm not sure if it's the right move." Evelyn's response was immediate. "Marcus, don't mix business with personal relationships. It rarely ends well. If this idea is as good as she says, she should be willing to find her own investors." Marcus sighed. "You're saying I shouldn't trust her?" "I'm saying you need to protect what you've built," Evelyn said firmly. "You've worked too hard to let someone else jeopardize it." Marcus took his mother's advice to heart and decided to delay his decision, hoping to buy some time. Sophia, however, didn't take the news well. She accused Marcus of not trusting her and questioned his commitment to their relationship. The argument left Marcus feeling torn between his loyalty to his mother and his desire to make Sophia happy. As the weeks passed, the tension between them grew. Sophia became increasingly insistent about the joint venture, while Marcus grew more cautious. Their once strong connection began to fray, and Marcus found himself questioning whether their relationship was built on genuine love or mutual ambition. Meanwhile, Evelyn watched from the sidelines, her heart heavy with worry. She wanted to protect her son, but knew that he had to learn some lessons on his own. For now, all she could do was wait and hope that Marcus would see Sophia for who she truly was, before it was too late. The call came on a quiet Sunday morning, shattering the stillness of Evelyn's small home. She had been sitting at the kitchen table sipping her coffee and flipping through an old photo album filled with memories of Marcus's childhood. The sound of her phone ringing jolted her, and she reached for it instinctively, her heart skipping a beat when she saw the unfamiliar number. "Hello?" she answered, her voice cautious. "Mrs. Johnson, this is Detective Harris with the Detroit Police Department," a man said on the other end, his tone formal but carrying an undercurrent of discomfort. "I'm calling to inform you that your son, Marcus Johnson, has passed away." Evelyn froze, her breath catching in her throat. That can't be true," she stammered. "There must be some mistake." "I'm very sorry, ma'am," Detective Harris said gently. "We were notified by his partner, Sophia Carter. She reported that he passed in his sleep last night. The coroner is conducting an examination, but it appears to be natural causes." The words hit Evelyn like a freight train, knocking the air from her lungs. Her mind raced, trying to process the unimaginable. Her Marcus was gone. The vibrant, ambitious young man she had raised with so much love and sacrifice had been taken from her without warning. "No," she whispered, shaking her head as tears streamed down her face. "This can't be happening." The rest of the conversation was a blur. Detective Harris explained the funeral arrangements that Sophia had already begun planning, but Evelyn barely heard him. When the call ended, she sat motionless, clutching the phone as if it were the only thing tethering her to reality. Hours passed in a haze as Evelyn replayed the detective's words over and over in her mind. Questions swirled. Why hadn't Sophia called her directly? Why were the arrangements being made so quickly? And most importantly, how could her healthy, vibrant son die so suddenly? Evelyn's grief was soon overshadowed by suspicion. Something didn't feel right, and her instincts told her that there was more to Marcus's death than what she had been told. Determined to uncover the truth, she resolved to attend the funeral, even though Sophia hadn't reached out to invite her. The day of the funeral arrived all too quickly. Evelyn dressed in a simple black dress, her hands trembling as she pinned a brooch to her chest. The ride to the funeral home was filled with an oppressive silence, broken only by her occasional sniffles as she wiped away tears. When she arrived, the sight of Marcus's closed casket at the front of the room sent a fresh wave of anguish crashing over her. The service was packed with people, most of whom Evelyn didn't recognize. Business associates, colleagues, and friends of Sophia filled the rows of seats, exchanging polite condolences. Evelyn noticed Sophia at the front, her expression composed but devoid of genuine sorrow. She stood with a group of friends, speaking in hushed tones that seemed far too casual for the somber occasion. When the service began, Evelyn felt her grief give way to a simmering anger. The eulogies, though heartfelt, focused on Marcus's professional achievements, glossing over the man he was beyond his success. There was no mention of the little boy who loved science, the teenager who worked part-time jobs to help his mother, or the young man who had defied the odds to make something of himself. As the service drew to a close, the funeral director announced that the casket would be transported to the burial site. Evelyn, overwhelmed with emotion, rose from her seat and approached the front of the room. She needed to see her son one last time to say goodbye properly. "I'd like to open the casket," she said, her voice trembling but firm. Sophia's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. "That won't be necessary," she said, her tone icy. "The arrangements have already been made." Evelyn stared at her, her grief giving way to suspicion. "I'm his mother," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I have the right to see him." Sophia stepped forward, blocking Evelyn's path. "I said no," she snapped. "Marcus wouldn't want this." The tension in the room was palpable as murmurs spread among the attendees. Evelyn's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She wasn't about to be dismissed, not when every fiber of her being screamed that something was wrong. Ignoring Sophia's protest, Evelyn pushed past her and approached the casket. A few people tried to intervene, but she held her ground, her determination unshakable. With trembling hands, she lifted the lid of the casket. Gasps filled the room as Evelyn's suspicions were confirmed. Marcus's chest rose and fell ever so slightly. He was breathing. He was alive. "My son is alive!" Evelyn cried, her voice echoing through the room. "Someone call an ambulance!" Chaos erupted as people scrambled to process what they were seeing. Sophia froze, her carefully crafted facade cracking as she realized her plan had been exposed. Before she could flee, one of Marcus's friends, an off-duty police officer, stepped forward and restrained her. "What did you do to him?" Evelyn demanded, her voice shaking with fury. "What did you do to my son?" Sophia's composure crumbled, and she began to sob. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I just wanted to make it look like he was gone." Her confession sent a chill through the room. Under questioning, Sophia admitted to giving Marcus a heavy dose of sedatives, planning to declare him dead and gain control of his assets. She had underestimated how quickly the sedative would wear off, and her plan had unraveled before her eyes. Paramedics arrived and rushed Marcus to the hospital, where he was stabilized and monitored. When he regained consciousness, he was met with the sight of his mother by his bedside, her tear-streaked face a mixture of relief and anger. "Mom," he croaked, his voice weak but steady. "What happened?" Evelyn took his hand in hers, her grip firm but gentle. "You almost lost everything, Marcus. But you're here. You're alive. That's all that matters now." The sterile hospital room was silent except for the rhythmic beeping of monitors. Marcus lay on the bed, pale and weak but alive. Evelyn sat beside him, holding his hand tightly, her eyes never leaving his face. The weight of everything that had happened pressed down on her, but the relief of seeing her son alive kept her grounded. Marcus had been given a second chance, and Evelyn was determined not to let anything come between them again. Marcus stirred, his eyelids fluttering open. His gaze met Evelyn's, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Tears welled up in his eyes as he gripped her hand weakly. "Mom," he rasped, his voice barely audible. "What happened?" Evelyn leaned forward, her other hand brushing his forehead gently. "You're safe now," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But Marcus, you've been through so much. Sophia, she did this to you." Marcus's brows furrowed in confusion. "Sophia? What do you mean?" Taking a deep breath, Evelyn began to recount the events of the funeral. She explained how she had insisted on opening the casket, how she had discovered he was still alive, and how Sophia's plan to stage his death had unraveled in front of everyone. Marcus listened in stunned silence, his expression shifting from disbelief to anger as the truth sank in. "She drugged me?" he asked, his voice rising slightly, despite his weakened state. "She tried to take everything from me?" Evelyn nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "She wanted to take everything, Marcus. Your company, your assets, everything you've worked so hard for. She would have buried you alive if I hadn't stopped her." Marcus's fist clenched, the betrayal cutting deeper than any physical pain he felt. He had trusted Sophia, let her into his life, and ignored every warning his mother had given him. The realization was almost too much to bear. "I was such a fool," he said, his voice trembling. "I should have listened to you." Evelyn squeezed his hand, her grip firm and steady. "You're not a fool, Marcus. You wanted to see the good in her. That's not a weakness, but you have to remember who's really in your corner." Marcus's jaw tightened as he processed her words. His mind replayed every moment with Sophia, every decision he had made to let her into his business and his life. The signs had been there all along, but he had ignored them, blinded by love and ambition. As they sat in silence, a knock on the door interrupted their moment. Detective Harris entered, his expression somber, but resolute. He carried a folder under his arm and gave Evelyn a polite nod before turning to Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, I'm glad to see you're awake," the detective said. "I wanted to update you on the investigation." Marcus struggled to sit up, wincing at the effort. Evelyn adjusted his pillows, her protective instincts kicking in. "What's going to happen to Sophia?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite his anger. Detective Harris pulled up a chair, placing the folder on the small table beside the bed. "Sophia Carter has been taken into custody. She's facing charges of attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. During her initial interrogation, she admitted to her plan in full detail." Evelyn's hands tightened into fists, her anger barely contained. "She admitted it?" she asked, her voice sharp. "She actually admitted what she did?" The detective nodded. "Yes, ma'am. She confessed that she drugged Mr. Johnson with a heavy dose of sedatives, intending to stage his death and claim his assets. She underestimated how long the drugs would keep him unconscious, and her plan fell apart when you intervened." Marcus's stomach churned as the detective laid out the details. Sophia's cold, calculated actions were like a dagger to his heart. The woman he had loved and trusted had viewed him as nothing more than a stepping stone to wealth and power. "What happens next?" Marcus asked, his voice low. "The evidence against her is overwhelming," Detective Harris said. "In addition to her confession, we've obtained financial records showing her attempts to transfer your assets into accounts under her control. With your testimony, we can ensure she's held accountable." Marcus nodded, his resolve hardening. "I'll testify," he said firmly. "I want her to face the consequences of what she did." Evelyn placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We'll get through this, Marcus. Together." As the detective left, Marcus and Evelyn sat in the quiet room, the weight of the situation settling over them. For Evelyn, the ordeal had been a painful reminder of how fragile life could be. For Marcus, it was a harsh lesson in trust and the importance of listening to those who truly cared about him. In the days that followed, Marcus's recovery was slow but steady. Evelyn remained by his side, her presence a constant source of comfort and strength. They spent hours talking, revisiting memories from Marcus's childhood, and reflecting on the choices that had brought them to this moment. "I'm so sorry, Mom," Marcus said one evening, his voice heavy with regret. "I should have listened to you. I should have seen her for who she really was." Evelyn shook her head, her expression softening. "We all make mistakes, Marcus. What matters is what you do next. You've been given a second chance, and I know you'll make the most of it." Marcus nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. "I will, and I'll make it up to you, Mom, I promise." As the days turned into weeks, Marcus began to regain his strength. His company, which had been left in limbo during his absence, welcomed him back with open arms. With Evelyn's guidance, he worked to rebuild the trust of his team and set new priorities for the future. Sophia's trial became a high-profile case, drawing attention from the media and the public. Marcus testified, recounting the betrayal and the near-fatal consequences of her actions. Evelyn sat in the courtroom, her presence a silent reminder of the love and support that had saved Marcus's life. When the verdict was delivered, guilty on all charges, Marcus felt a sense of closure. Sophia's sentence ensured she would spend years behind bars, far away from the life she had tried to steal. But for Marcus and Evelyn, the journey was far from over. The scars left by the ordeal would take time to heal, but their bond, forged through hardship and love, remained unbreakable. As they walked out of the courthouse together, Marcus looked at his mother with a newfound appreciation. "Thank you, Mom," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "For everything." Evelyn smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "You're my son, Marcus. I'll always fight for you." Together, they stepped into the sunlight, ready to face whatever came next, stronger, wiser, and united.
Subscribe and press the bell icon so that you never miss the amazing video.